Hello creators and crafters! Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you how I created this magical moongate home decor piece. What is a moongate, you ask? Well, here's the spark notes. A moongate is a circular opening in a garden wall that acts as a pedestrian passageway and is a traditional architectural element in Chinese gardens. The gates typically serve as an inviting entrance into the gardens of the rich upper class in China. More generally though, a moongate is thought to offer welcome or fortune to those who pass through it. English gardeners borrowed the idea from China in the late 19th century, and then American gardeners immediately followed suit. Moongates are particularly popular in Bermuda, where they are often left freestanding rather than built into a wall. In Bermuda and elsewhere, a moongate is often used in wedding ceremonies, with the newlyweds stepping through it for good luck in marriage. I love the look and meaning of a moongate and challenged myself by creating a miniature version for our home. This is yet again another decor on a budget craft. And with that, let's begin. For this craft, you're not going to need too many items. The most important part of it is the circle for the actual moongate itself. I'm not going to try to make mine out of twigs. I bought this from the $1.25 tree. I like to say it because they raised their prices. First time though since they opened, so you can't blame them. But you can grab a vine one. I just grabbed this green one because they didn't have any vine one, so I'm going to have to cover the entire thing with moss. And then also a base, which you can cover your entire base, but I thought it might look pretty cool if I just, had that cool base, and then I could either stick it on with either a wooden dowel, so I would put one in here, one in there. I would cut this. This came off of a hanger, but they do also sell wooden dowels at the Dollar Tree, and if you don't want to go to a craft store, you can get wooden dowels at like Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Target. They definitely have wooden dowels in most craft sections at general stores. You're definitely going to need a hot glue gun. I don't know what I would do without a hot glue gun. I mean, obviously not crafts. And then moss. You're going to need a lot of moss. This moss is from Walmart, and I thought that the moss itself, because it's like these nice big long pieces, would be better. But you can see it's like thicker and it's longer, and I don't even know if this is real moss, but this is really, really great for crafting, and it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't expensive. I think it was around $7, but I do have like a bag of moss from the Dollar Tree, and the Dollar Tree moss, it's significantly smaller, and with these bigger pieces, it's easier for crafting than trying to glue on all. This is almost like shredded Parmesan cheese, and this is basically grated Parmesan cheese if I had to compare it to food, because that's probably the best way. The brown moss from the Dollar Tree is definitely like this. Thicker, it's like grated Parmesan cheese, longer pieces, much easier to work with than the green moss from the Dollar Tree. So maybe grab your green moss from Walmart and then grab your brown moss to save money from the Dollar Tree. And then in lieu of the dowel, if you wanted to use a stick, so I foraged some sticks from the yard, and then you want to show it, that would be really cool. So if I want my stick to show on this cool piece of wood, because I don't really want to cover this piece of wood with moss, I thought it would maybe elevate the craft and look a bit more elegant if the whole thing just wasn't a mossy blob. I can cut pieces off of this, stick it into here, and then either drill holes in here and sink it in, or for the sake of this video, show you guys that you can just hot glue to this nice base piece and it will stick perfectly fine. Let's just mess around with this and see if we can make a cool moongate using only really a couple of different items. So we're gonna cut this at an angle. This is the part that we are going to insert. You can use anything to cut it. I have some garden shears, so I'm gonna use that. Cut at an angle so that we can shove it in there. We might have to pre-do the hole. I don't know if this is gonna go in perfectly without shattering, because this stick is a little bit dry. That being the case, you can just use a screwdriver. But we're gonna go at about 3 inches because we're gonna lose a bit inside of the circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just gonna get glued onto there, and then we can put a little moss around it to hide the glue. This one's already at an angle, so I'm just gonna measure it starting at the top there, and then do 3 inches here. I'm finding it kind of hard to film myself, but Anyway, so I am going to, in between different things that I do, use my handy dandy, see what I did there because it's a handheld vacuum, and I'm just going to clean everything up because crafting gets really messy and these little pieces of wood, if they fall on the ground and then I don't sweep them all up and then I step on them, they get on my feet and I'm like, oh, why didn't I clean it up? So in between doing different things, I typically like to clean up. You don't have to, but if you notice that it gets clean in between, it's because I'm literally vacuuming my table. But yeah, just in case anyone was wondering, I am weird like that. Now, I was playing around with the spacing to put the sticks on here, and I do believe that roughly 6 inches apart I liked. It's more like 5.5 to 5 3/4. So if you just want to do it based off of the length of your stick and how high you want it to be up, because remember you're going to need to make your sticks longer if it's further out, and then shorter if it's closer in, if you want it closer down to the base. So I had, that's 5. It's a little close together. I'll do 5 3/4. So I'm going to find the center and then I'm going to measure out. So to make it easier, I'll just do 5.5. And then when I measure out from the center, then I will mark my holes. I'm not going to pre-drill. I'm going to show you guys that you can make this pretty sturdy and stable with just your hot glue. But if you feel like pre-drilling a little bit of holes so that you can countersink it in, definitely do that. I don't blame you, and I think that it is a good idea. Got my screwdriver. Don't hurt yourself. Before you insert your sticks, get your glue gun nice and hot, fill it with glue, shove them in there. And if you don't like the height of it, you can always trim it later. Do that for both sides. Now that these are inserted and they are dry, we are going to move our base aside. You can clean up. And we are going to put glue on this, and I will time-lapse it all for you all to see and follow along with me. We're going to put glue all over this and then put moss on it in the different types of mosses that I have. So I'm going to go green first, and if you wanted to make a moon gate that, let's say, it was just all brown moss, I would recommend using a base the same color as the moss, just so you don't see the base, because there will be holes that peek through. But it's not a big deal. I mean, I could always paint this the exact color of the moss, but this lighter color should be completely fine. There's tons of opportunities, endless possibilities. You can just do whatever you want, however you want, but this is how I'm gonna do it. And hopefully we like the way that it turns out. All right, so now this is covered in the first layer. As you can see, it is visible, clearly visible, through this first layer of moss, the ring as our base. If at the end, whenever we're done, what we're going to do is we're going to take our blow dryer outside and we're going to just blow dry all the edges, and all of this part will melt back into it. But so we're going to just, in the areas that you can see, take this other deer moss. This was the one from the Dollar Tree. You can see it's slightly different texture, slightly different color. We're going to kind of make little balls of it and just shove it in the areas and just kind of wing it and be artistic with it, be fun, be creative, and have a good time. Now you can see there's a little bit of variation in the colors of the moss. I have not taken the blow dryer to this yet because I want to attempt and put some of this brown moss on it in just a couple of little areas. I want it to be extremely sparse because I want it to feel very alive still. I don't want it to feel like it's dying off. I'm just going to put a couple of pieces of the brown moss in, very thin, in just little areas. So I decided I wanted this to be the front. I like that I got a bit more in there. And then I want this side to be the back. And I'm going to have it displayed on a shelf, but it might in the future be in an area where you see both sides. So I am doing both sides, as I typically always do both sides because I apparently am extra. That being said, I'm just going to add a little bit of brown to the back side and see if I like it. And then if I don't like it, I won't add it to the front side and it'll just be what it is. It's always good to experiment on the back side. So let's try this. Now you can see if you push it down really hard, you get that little bit of kind of squish look. And then if you just stick it in with your nails in a couple of spots, it kind of has a different look to it. So just know whenever you're doing it, based off of how hard you squish it down, it could have a different look to it. And you really When you're messing around with it, you'll figure out what you like best for yourself. It's really just a preference. I think that this looks more mixed in and this looks more like I just shoved a blob on it. So I'm going to try to do the nail technique. I will say, knowing what I know now, I would put the green base on first, maybe brown in some spots, then put the green base on actually. Kind of cover it and like mix it in a little bit. And then before I put on the different type of green moss, I would put the brown in and kind of like mix it together so that it looks a bit more natural and a bit less spotty. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to grab some of the green moss and mix it in with this and then put it in different spots because this is not meshing very well. I'm just going to take some of the green and just mix it up with the brown so that it's a bit less blobby. Now that looks a little bit more blended, which I prefer. So the areas where I already put the brown, I'm just gonna go back in with the green and just mix a little bit on top with the brown and then add to it. And hopefully that'll blend it a little bit better. But again, use your nails at this point. Don't smush it down because you'll get this look. And this looks better. The nails look better. All right, conclusion, definitely better blended. So blend your brown and your green together if you're going to use the brown. Rip it up and then glue it on. And you will get a unique moon gate. So this is the front without the brown. This is the back side with the brown. Now I know how I want to incorporate the brown by mixing it together, so I am glad that I did it on the back side. I do like the way the back side looks. I think it's a little bit more interesting, so I'm just going to add a little bit to this side, but I'm going to blend it very well. Now we are going to glue this onto the base here. My dots were not apparently in the right spot, but so this is at 5 3/4, not 5 1/2 like I expected it was going to be, so we're off a little bit, but that doesn't matter because once we glue it on, we're going to put a little bit of moss down here to hide it. But if you don't want to put moss on, you could drill the holes and slide it into them, and especially if you're using a dowel that has like perfect clean lines, it will be really easy to just slide that in and put like a little bit of either wood glue in there or super glue, but any glue that adheres wood to wood is completely fine. I'm just going to glue mine on because I'm going to assume everybody watching, or most people watching this, they don't have tools. So I'm just going to make it the way somebody who doesn't have tools would make it so that you guys can see what it looks like that way. I'm gonna have to hold it for a little bit of time. Start off with just a little bit of glue. And you could always set it further back or straight up against the wood. That's a couple different options. You can look online and see how moon gates are and what you would prefer. It's really just a preference. You could set it further back and stack like rocks so it looks like, you know, you're walking up into it. But I didn't know what I wanted, so this is what I'm doing. It's really hard to choose, whatever you're looking. There's tons of options. All right, cool. So it's on there. And now we will just add all the glue to reinforce it. After we get the first 2 layers of glue on, we're gonna add another layer all the way around. Put it on the stick, let it drip down, let it kind of dry for about a minute, depending on how hot this gets, and then take some shredded moss of your color choice. I'm going with the brown and green blend. And then I mushed it in, made it pretty strong, and then once that's dry, I'll do another layer around it and kind of use my nails and just stick it in there. Truthfully, drilling the hole and sinking it in would be better for it. And then it kept falling, so now it's leaning back just a tiny bit, which isn't a big deal because you can't tell from the front, just the profile. I'm gonna let it dry on this side before I stick this in for at least a minute, and I'll tell you which one goes better. Definitely wait for the glue to dry a little bit. So let me go and blow dry it. All right, this is what it looks like right now. I'm gonna stage it tomorrow. It is dark out, so staging doesn't really look the best. But the cool thing about the simplicity of this, and I'm going to show you, is that it is great for all occasions. So I could decorate this for St. Patrick's Day. I could, you know, add some greenery to it, which I might add a little bit of greenery for some interest. It's not my best greenery. And in the future, I'd prefer, if I were to make some craft like this again, to buy like higher quality greenery. And another really cool thing is if you have flowers, okay, so for different holidays or different occasions, if you have different color schemes, what you can do is you can pop this part out and you can buy the sewing needles that have the pearl ends, and you can shove it into different areas because this is a foam base. You can add as much or as little as you want to it, and it looks nice when something's hanging down. Now, if this was a better quality and I could kind of wrap it around and make it look grown in, I would like that, but this is plasticky and trashy. It's for outdoors. I'm gonna stage it tomorrow. I'll see you then, but you could even do little rock stacks on it, you know, like the cute little rock stacks. Yeah, that's fine. All right, that's why we should hold it. Just waiting for blue to drive by.